So hello everyone, I'm Jessie Bayao, and today I will be tackling about Chapter 10, Negative Global Flows and Processes. It includes the dangerous imports, borderless diseases like HIV and AIDS, avian flu, um, SARS, Ebola virus, and tropical diseases in Europe. Dangerous imports refers to the importation of goods that may cause risk, health, safety, or the environment. This could include items such as counterfeit products, hazardous chemicals, or illegal substances. It could also refer to the importation of invasive species or materials that could harm our ecosystem. So dangerous imports could simply means the importation of goods that is not good for our health. That's why it's dangerous and it's not safety for ourselves and to our environment. This could be an item, a food, or a product. For example, counterfeit products or imitation of product that is cheaper but does not have a good impression to the environment and have illegal substances added to it. And one of the examples of dangerous imports are those invasive species like animals that are not from the Philippines that imported and being placed on zoo will it's not their own habitat and it's dangerous to their health and to the ecosystem. And also, like for the example, if you're a student and living on boarding houses, then one of the example of it is the yung nilulutuan nyo na yung kulay green. Tas when you cook, kapag nagluluto na kayo, merong yung plastic sa loob, yon ay disposable na or tinatapon yon galing sa ibang bansa din pinupunta sa Philippines, and then tayo naman tinatanggap tas binibenta yon ng mas mura, not knowing that it has chemicals and substances that is not good for our health and to our environment. Kaso, tayong mga Pinoy, tumatangkilik pa rin tayo kahit alam nating masama ito sa kalusugan natin. 'Di ba? Pag nilulutuan yon, meron yung plastic sa loob na natatanggal, and then possibly na pupunta yon sa pagkain natin or nakakain natin when your health is not, or parang pag hindi tinatanggap yun ng katawan mo, then it could be harmful to your health and could also be harmful to the environment. Another example of dangerous imports is illegal drug. It is called illegal because it is not good for our health. It may be beneficial for uh, for others, but not for everyone. They take in drug not for their health but for just for fun. So it is not good for our health. But why is it rampant and is entering in our country? I think one of the factors of it is the people in the government or the politicians that is, protecting those illegal drugs. And we don't know that people from the government is the drug lord. So one example also is toys. There are toys that is substandard or does not reach the standard of health or reach the standard for the environment, or that could to the standard of you know the toys that is being distributed to children. So for there is I've read it online that there's some toys that is they've been painted like they are toxics painted on toys that is not good for the children. So it's one of the factors that could also be um, kanang dapat nating pagtuunan ng pansin, that Also, there are also plants that is dangerous in our country that is not or should not be distributed towards other country, because like there are animals also that is not good being here in our country and could also not survive in our country. So it is one of the example of dangerous imports, and dapat nating pagtuunan ng pansin that it is important because it could harm our health and our environment as well. What is borderless diseases? Borderless diseases are infectious diseases that can spread easily across national borders, affecting multiple countries or even continents. These diseases often transcend geographical, political, and cultural boundaries, posing significant challenges for global health authorities and necessitating coordinated international responses. Um, examples examples includes pandemics like COVID-19, Ebola, and influenza outbreaks that is very rampant nowadays, and it is known globally, and most of it are non, or there is no specific medicine to it. Borderless diseases. It typically refers to illnesses or health issues that can easily spread across national boundaries due to globalization, international travel, and interconnectedness. We sum up to five borderless diseases: HIV/AIDS, avian flu, SARS, Ebola virus, and tropical diseases on Europe. According to Follier and Thorne 2008, human immunodeficiency virus and acquired immunodeficiency syndrome spreads in various ways like blood transfusions, but it's spread through sexual human contact as an or sexually transmitted infection. So, HIV is primarily spread through contact with certain body fluids from an infected person, including blood, semen, vaginal fluids, rectal fluids, and breast milk. Common ways of transmission include unprotected sexual contact, sharing needles, and from mother to child during childbirth or breastfeeding. Symptoms of AIDS. AIDS symptoms include rapid weight loss, recurring fever, extreme tiredness, prolonged swelling of lump glands, diarrhea lasting more than a week, sores of the mouth, anus or genitals, pneumonia, red, brown, pink or purplish blotches on under the skin, and memory loss or other neurological disorders. Treatment: antiretroviral therapy. There is no cure for HIV, but it can be controlled with art. This involves taking a combination of HIV medicines called an HIV treatment regimen every day. Art helps reduce the viral load in the blood to undetectable levels, allowing the immune system to recover and function properly. Prevention methods include using condoms, taking pre-exposure prophylaxis for people at high risk, post-exposure prophylaxis immediately after potential exposure, avoiding sharing needles, and ensuring blood products are screened for HIV. So, I want to take this opportunity to share to everybody that HIV and AIDS is not just a disease for gays. It is a disease for everyone. Like, it does not just include the people in the LGBTQ QIA community. It includes all the people that may do intersex and blood transfusion with the victim of HIV. Severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus, is thought to have originated in bats and was transmitted to humans through intermediate hosts. possibly civet cat in live animals markets. Human-to-human transmission occurred primarily through respiratory droplets produced when an infected person coughs or sneezes. The symptoms of SARS typically begins with flu-like symptoms, including fever, chills, muscle aches, and cough. Some individuals may also experience respiratory symptoms such as shortness of breath and pneumonia. In severe cases, SARS can lead to respiratory failure and death. Patients with severe symptoms of SARS, such as difficulty breathing or pneumonia, often require hospitalization. In the hospital, they received supportive care including oxygen therapy and intravenous fluids to maintain hydration. According to my research, with no further investigation, COVID-19 started in December 2019 in Wuhan, China. It is because of eating butts, and I think it is from the virus coming from the butt and then eat it, then transmitted because it is in the market and it is very known. So to prevent it, prevention measures of SARS include practicing good hand hygiene, avoiding close contact with individuals displaying respiratory symptoms, wearing personal protective equipment such as masks, and implementing infection control measures in healthcare. So the vaccine that we've been injecting is not a cure. It is just a prevention to prevent us from contact or having the symptoms of COVID-19. Ebola virus disease, or EVD, commonly known as Ebola, is a severe and often fatal illness caused by Ebola virus. Transmission. Ebola virus is transmitted to humans through direct contact with the bodily fluids such as blood, saliva, urine, feces, vomit, and semen of infected animals, primarily fruit bats and non-human primates. So, when eating exotic foods, we must surely clean them internally and thoroughly, and then cook it properly so that we could not experience this virus. Symptoms include fever, severe headache, muscle pain, fatigue, sore throat, and weakness. These symptoms are followed by vomiting, diarrhea, rash, impaired kidney and liver function, and in some cases, internal and external bleeding. Treatment. Patients with Ebola receive supportive therapy, including extravenous fluids and electrolytes, maintaining oxygen levels, and treating other infections if they occur. And this also don't have any cure. Preventing Ebola entails rigorous infection control, hand washing, avoiding bodily fluid contact, using protective gear, ensuring safe burials, and conducting surveillance and community education for early detection and containment. Tropical diseases in Europe. While tropical diseases are typically associated with regions closer to the equator, some can also occur in Europe, particularly in areas with suitable climates and ecological conditions. One of the tropical diseases in Europe is chikungunya. Transmission of chikungunya virus is primarily transmitted to humans through the bite of infected Aedes mosquitoes. These mosquitoes typically bite during the day, particularly early in the morning and late afternoon. So, Aedes mosquito is transported and imported into other places. It is because of tires being imported. So as we all know, also here in the Philippines, it's very rampant when there is tires and then it's raining, then there is water that's being stagnant, then it would be a home for any mosquitoes. Symptoms include sudden onset of high fever, severe joint pain, mainly in the hands, wrists, ankles, and feet, headache, muscle pain, fatigue, rash, and nausea. Pain relievers such as acetaminophen or paracetamol can help reduce fever and alleviate joint pain. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs may also be used to relieve pain and inflammation, but aspirin should be avoided due to the risk of bleeding. Preventing chikungunya primarily involves reducing exposure to mosquito bites and controlling mosquito populations. The presence of diseases without a cure underscores the interconnected nature of global health and the importance of collective action to prevent, detect, and respond to emerging health threats in an increasingly interconnected world. This topic shows the dark side of globalization as it is shrinkage the distance of each continent and the interconnectedness of nations to nations, the organizations of any places. So, as it is happening, this is also happening. The diseases that is not for everyone is distributed also to any places because of globalization. So globalization has advantage and disadvantages, and this report shows some of the disadvantages of globalization. Preventing the spread of globally significant viruses and diseases without a cure requires a multifaceted approach. The robust public health measures, including vaccination programs and hygiene promotion, are essential. Early detection through surveillance systems and border control measures can help contain outbreaks. Investing in research for treatments and vaccine is crucial alongside community engagement to foster trust and promote healthy behaviors. Strengthening healthcare systems and fostering international cooperation are also key components. While there are or they may not be a cure, these preventive measures can mitigate the impact until effective treatments or vaccines are developed.
Good day, everyone. Today we are going to explore the negative global flows and processes. First, here we have crime. Crime is an act that violates the laws of a society and is punishable by the state. It encompasses a wide range of behaviors and actions that are deemed unacceptable and harmful by the governing authorities, such as petty theft or traffic violations, to serious offenses like murder or terrorism. Ibig sabihin po, ang paggawa ng krimen, maliit man o malaki, hindi lang sa ating kapwa pati na rin sa mga mahalagang bagay, ay maaaring patawan ng kaukulang batas. Halimbawa po nito ay ang pagsisinungaling. Sa ilang sitwasyon tulad ng pagbigay ng di akmang impormasyon o kalimitan ay pandadaraya o scamming ay mahigpit po nakalaban sapagkat maraming tao ang naloloko lalo na sa mga fake advertisements na nakikita natin sa social media platforms, at ito rin ay isa sa halimbawa na ginagampanan ng teknolohiya sa pagpapalaganap ng cybercrime. Marami ang halimbawa ng krimen na maaaring itinuturing natin na hindi krimen. Isa na rito ang pagsusugal. Maaaring sa ibang lugar ang pagsusugal ay legal at para sa recreational na gawain lamang. Ngunit nagiging krimen ito kung may kaugnayan ito sa mga iligal na operasyon at mga sindikato. Isa pang halimbawa nito ay ang petty theft. Ibig sabihin po nito ay ang pagnanakaw ng maliliit na bagay. Bagaman maliliit lamang po ito, ang pagnanakaw ay isang krimen. May ilang sitwasyon na nagnanakaw ang isang tao upang may maipakain sa kanyang pamilya. Ngunit, kahit na mabuti ang motibo sa pagnanakaw, sa mata ng batas at Diyos ang pagnanakaw ng hindi sa iyo ng walang pahintulot ay isang gawaing krimen. Ngayon, bakit nga ba nagkakaroon ng krimen? Katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, gumagawa ng krimen ang isang tao para sa kanyang pansariling kapakanan o desperidad sa buhay. Crime exists due to a combination of social, economic, and psychological factors. For example, economic disparities, social dysfunction, lack of education, and psychological issues can all contribute to individuals engaging in all criminal behavior. So, ibig sabihin po, karamihan sa mga taong gumagawa ng krimen ay mayroong personal motives. The concept of crime encompasses various illegal actions that are considered harmful or detrimental to individuals, communities, or society as a whole. It is often defined and categorized by legal systems with penalties. So may kaukulang batas po ito for committing crimes, typically including fines o pagbabayad, imprisonment o maaring makulong ang isang tao, provision or other forms of punishment. Now, let's move to our next topic, different forms of crimes. First, we have violent crimes. These are acts that involve the use of force or other threat of force against others, resulting in physical harm or injury. Examples include murder, assault, or robbery. So, ito pong violent crimes na ito ay mahirap na alabanin na no na malaki rin ang katumbas na penalty sapagkat ito ay murder, assault, robbery. Next is we have property crimes. These offensive involve the theft, damage, or destruction of property belonging to others. Examples include burglary, larceny, and arson. So itong burglary po no ay ang pagpasok sa bahay o gusali ng iba na walang pahintulot at may layunin na magnakaw. So kaya po may karapatan po tayo sa we have this so-called property right, no? Na kung may estranghero man na pumasok sa iyong bahay ay maaari mo siyang sampahan ng kaso. Larceny or theft o ang pagnanakaw no ng ibang property. And we have the arson or deliberadong pagpapahayag ng apoy sa ari-arian ng iba. So, ito rin po ay nakakabahala sapagkat may mga ibang tao na gumagawa nito at sinusunog ang bahay o ari-arian ng ibang tao. Next, we have the white-collar crimes. These are non-violent crimes typically committed by individuals or organizations in a business or professional setting for financial gain. Examples include fraud, embezzlement, and insider trading. Ngayon, bakit nga ba ito tinatawag na white collar? Ito po ay hango sa katangian ng mga profesional na nagsusuot ng puting kolyar o barong. So ibig sabihin po, sila yung kadalasang involved sa gawaing ito sapagkat sila ay nagtatanda ng opisyalidad at pagiging professional sa trabaho. Kaya ang mga gawain tulad ng fraud ay karaniwang isinasagawa ng mga taong may mataas na posisyon sa negosyo, pamahalaan o iba pang larangan ng propesyon. So isang halimbawa po nito ay ang pork barrel scam noon nalaganap sa news na nakasangkutan ni Janet Lem Napoles. Number 4, cybercrimes. These are illegal activities conducted via the internet or other digital means, often involving technology, to commit fraud, theft, or other criminal acts. Example include hacking, identity theft, and online scams. So, ang cybercrimes din po ang krimen po ay hindi lang physical injuries na ginagawa mo sa ibang tao kundi maaari ring cyber or internet activities na illegal. So ang tulad lamang po ng hacking. So pag-hack ng account lalo na po sa mga credit cards. So, nalaganap sa mga western countries, and identity theft, yung kukunin mo, no, using someone else personal information, tapos papanggap ka bilang kung sino yung ibang tao na iyon. We call that identity theft. Kadalasang nabibiktima, no, sa gawaing ito ay ang mga matatanda na baguhan lamang sa social media. Kaya ugaliing magsiyasat at huwag basta-basta ibigay o ilagin ang mga pribadong personal information sa iba't ibang website upang makaiwas sa cybercrimes. Number 5, organized crimes. These are crimes committed by structured groups typically involving illegal goods and services such as drug trafficking, human trafficking, and extortion. And we also have these public order crimes, which acts as a disrupt public peace or violates societal norms, often involving behavior that is considered socially unacceptable. So, itong dalawang po ito ay mga illegal activities for profit or power. So, we have here the human trafficking. These are exploiting mga tao for forced labor or sexual exploitation. Kaya po may nagaganap na raid kasi ito po ay krimen, lalo na po sa mga kabataan na ginagawang sex exploitation o sa madaling sabi ay tawag at meron din po tayong tinatawag na drug offenses at prostitution. So yung drug offenses po ay isa sa malaking kinaharap natin noong panahon ni Pangulong Duterte na nagkaroon ng oplan tokhang laban sa mga drug addicts at mga pushers. So, iilan lamang po ito sa laganap na krimen, hindi lang dito sa Pilipinas kundi na rin pati sa buong mundo. Next, we have here the drivers of global crime. Ang teknolohiya ay nagbibigay ng malaking kontribusyon sa krimen sa pamamagitan ng pagbubukas ng mga bagong oportunidad para sa mga kriminal na mag-operate at magtago ng kanilang mga kahinaan. So, in this way, globalization has facilitated the movement of goods, capital, and the people across borders, creating opportunities for criminal enterprises to exploit. So dahil sa yan. Technology pa pala tayo, sorry. Advances in technology, particularly the internet and encrypted communication, have enabled criminals to conduct illegal activities across borders with greater anonymity and efficiency. Ibig sabihin po, dahil sa patuloy na pag-unlad ng teknolohiya, mas maaring itong magamit ng mga krimen o mga kriminal upang gumawa ng krimen. Kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina, meron tayong mga online hackings, identity theft, and online scams na laganap sa social media platforms, katulad ng mga fake advertisements na kaya dapat natin itong suriin ng maayos. Next, we have here the economic integration, or we call this the globalization. Bakit nga ba ang globalization ay ang parte nagiging factor kung bakit nagkakaroon ng krimen? Dahil po sa globalization, patuloy na lumiliit ang mundo. Kaya hindi lumiliit. Lumiliit ang mga bansa nagiging isa, ganon. So, dahil sa patuloy na globalization, mas nagiging madali para sa mga criminal na for example, madali para sa kanila i-ship yung mga droga patungo sa ibang bansa, Kaya naman lumalaganap ang krimen. Next, we have the cultural exchange. This, pasensya po. Increased cultural exchange and migration have led to the spread of criminal networks and activities as well as the emergence of new forms of crime that target diverse populations. So dahil po sa patuloy na globalisasyon, nagkakaroon po tayo ng cultural exchange. At dahil po dito, ito po ay nagiging daan upang gumawa ng krimen ang mga taong gustong sana makakuha ng kapangyarihan hindi lang sa isang bansa ay sa kanyang isang lungsod kundi pati na rin sa ibang bansa. Kagaya po sa mga nangyayari dito sa buong mundo na mga conflicts. Ganun po. Next is we have here the terrorism. Let us try to understand it and how globalization becomes a factor in terrorism. Terrorism is the use of violence, intimidation, or coercion to achieve political, ideological, or religious objectives. It is typically carried out by individuals or groups who seek to instill fear, disrupt societal order, or provoke a response from governments or organizations. So, from the word itself, it involves the use of violence or threats. So, ano nga ba ang kaibahan ng krimen sa terrorism? Ang terrorism po ay isang krimen. Ngunit ito ay gumagamit ng dahas upang makabuo ng fear. At ito po ay politically and ideologically speaking. So, meaning to say their motives is more about political or politics. Terrorists typically target civilians or non-combatants to draw attention to their cause and pressure governments or states to make changes. So this terrorism or terrorist tawag sa mga taong ay mostly mga government oppositions. So gusto nilang may mabago sa government or hindi sila sumasang-ayon sa government kaya nila merong nagkakaroon ng terorismo. First, here we have the types of terrorism. We have political terrorism. It aims at destabilizing or overthrowing governments. So, katulad po ng sinabi ko kanina, ang terrorism po ay ang mga taong oppose sa mga government. Kaya nagkakaroon tayo ng political terrorism sapagkat nais nilang sila ang humalili, kapalit sa government. Next is we have the religious terrorism motivated by religious ideologies. So example po nito ay yung mga ISIS and Boko Haram. So ito po ay ang kalimitang na o-oppress sa government na dahil sa kanilang religion. So ito pong dalawang ito ay sometimes magkasama at sometimes naman ay magkahiwalay. Bakit po? Kasi po sa political ay sa religious meron pong mga motives or mga ideologies sa religious na hindi sang-ayon sa political. Kaya minsan itong dalawa ay magkahiwalay sa iisang organisasyon. Next is we have the state-sponsored terrorism. Governments support terrorist groups to achieve foreign policy goals. So example po ay ang Iran support for Hezbollah. So it is based on specific ideologies or extremist beliefs which may not necessarily be religious. These conclude ideologies such as nationalism, anarchism, or environmentalism. So this aims to advance a particularly ideology or bring about social or political change. So from the word itself, state-sponsored. So ayun po. Ito po ay ang may isang country or state na sumusuporta, no, sa terorismo upang labanan ang isang bansa. Ganon po. Or like for example, giving them funds for their money to buy weapons, ganun po. Then next we have the cyber terrorism and biological or chemical terrorism. Cyber terrorism involves using cyberspace to carry out attacks on computer systems, networks, or infrastructure. So, ito naman pong cyber terrorism ay natakol natin kanina, kagaya ng paggamit ng teknolohiya, no? Pagpapalagap ng virus or hindi po yung virus na nakakahawa, kundi po online virus na maaaring makakuha ng mga impormasyon, pribadong impormasyon galing sa ating mga government agencies. Kaya po dapat po itong nagkakaroon ng high securities. Biological or chemical terrorism naman po ay isang type of terrorism which involves the use of biological or chemical agents to cause harm, illness, or death to individuals or populations. So, these are using chemicals as weapons. So, kagaya po ng mga cyanide, mga biological agents, yung mga taong nagdadala ng mga chemical para sa ipasabog, ganun po. Next, here we have the difference between crime and terrorism. So, the main difference between crime and terrorism is their focus or motivation. So, for crime, criminal activities are typically motivated by personal gain, financial profit, or malicious intent. So, kapag sinabi natin krimen, ginagawa ito ng mga smaller groups lamang. At for personal gain, criminals engage in illegal activities such as theft, fraud, and drug trafficking to achieve individual or group objectives. So, meron naman pong krimen, no, na pangmalakihan. Tawag nito yung robbery, ganon. Terrorism is motivated by political, ideological, or religious beliefs. So, hindi mo maaaring sabihin na ang krimen ay isang terrorism. Pero ang terrorism ay masasabing krimen. Sapagkat si terrorism ay may motivation or may political and ideological and religious motivation sa likod nito kung bakit ito ginagawa. Terrorists use violence or the threat of violence to instill fear. So, isang malaking hamon ito sapagkat maraming tao ang buhay na nabubuwis dahil lang sa terrorism. Next, we have targets. So, for crime, criminals often target individuals, business, or property to obtain valuable or resources. Common targets of crime include homes, business, banks, and personal belongings. For terrorism naman, ito ay ang pag-target ng mga malalaking gusali or maaaring hindi lamang sa isang bansa kundi sa ibang ring bansa ito makaapekto. It has a psychological impact and publicity. So kagaya na lamang sa Iran at sa Afghanistan. So yung war na yon ay parte ng terorismo. So ang crime or krimen, krimen laban or kontra sa droga o plantokhang, ganun po. For methods, criminal activities can involve a wide range of methods including theft, burglary, robbery, fraud, and exploitation. Terrorism involves the use of violence or the threats of violence to achieve political and can include bombings, shootings, hijackings, kidnappings, and cyber attacks. So, sa terorismo po, ito po ay madugo ang laban. kasi gumagamit sila ng mga sandata na hindi lamang isa ang nasasawi kundi maaaring isang buong lungsod o kabuong nasod. Sa krimen po ay um, kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina, kahit maliit ito, no, ang pagnanakaw ay masasabing krimen. So, for organizations, crime or criminal activities may be carried out by individuals, organized crime groups, or syndicates. For terrorism, these are typically organized around ideological or political objectives. Kagaya na lamang ng mga ISIS, yan ay ang terrorism. For crime, makikita mo mga individuals lamang po ang gumagawa dahil sapagkat sa kanilang personal motives, no, kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina na halimbawa na nagnanakaw ang isang tao sapagkat wala siyang maipakain sa kanyang pamilya. So, ganun po yon. So, meron din po tayong mga organizations and movements dito sa terrorism. Isa na rin po dito ang Al-Qaeda. Ito po ay isang Islamist extremist group responsible for the 9/11 attacks. Meron din po tayong ISIS or the Islamic State. It is known for establishing a self-declared caliphate in Iraq and Syria. And also the Hezbollah, the Shiite militant group based in Lebanon, and Boko Haram, Islamist group in Nigeria, and the Taliban, the Islamist group in Afghanistan. So, ang napapansin ko po dito sa mga terorismo ay mga Islamist group. Sapagkat I think that they are oppressed with the governments because they are less privileged, no, in terms of power. So kaya mostly sa ibang mga extremist na mga group ay gusto nilang makakuha ng power, kaya naman sila ay nag-o-oppress sa government. Now, what is the role of globalization in crime and terrorism? Globalization has transformed crime and terrorism by increasing connectivity, facilitating movement, and providing new tools for criminals and terrorists. This presents challenges that require international cooperation and adaptive strategies to address effectively. So, isang malaking hamon, no, sa krimen at terorismo ang globalisasyon dahil sa patuloy na globalisasyon, lumalawak ang area of effect ng crime and terrorism, at hindi lamang po ito nasusugpo, no, sa isang organisasyon lamang kundi sa kooperasyon ng pangkalahatan, international cooperation, kasi hindi lamang po nabubuo ang krimen dito sa Pilipinas. Maraming krimen lalo na sa India, at dahil sa patuloy na mga krimen at terorismo, nagkakaroon tayo ng inequalities sa ating life, no? At dahil nagkakaroon ng inequalities, mas maraming tao, no, ang nahihimok na gumawa ng krimen imbes na ipagpatuloy na maging magkaroon ng kapayapaan dito sa ating bansa. So, yun lamang po ang aking report. Maraming salamat po sa
Good day, I am JR Anchola Abelo, and today is I'm gonna discuss the negative global flows and processes of war. So, first is let us define what is war. So, war is a state of armed conflict between groups, nations, or states. It typically involves aggression, hostility, and violence with the aim of achieving political, social, or territorial objectives. War often results in destruction, loss of life, and suffering for those involved, as well as broader societal impacts such as economic instability and displacement of populations. War disrupts global flows in various ways. Economically, it can hinder trade routes, damage infrastructure, and destabilize markets, leading to shortages and inflation. Socially, war causes displacement of populations, exacerbating refugee crisis and straining resources in host countries. Politically, war can escalate tensions between nations, leading to diplomatic rifts and hindering cooperation on global issues. The numerous relations that exist among the different regions of the world means that a war is one likely to involve others. For example, the 1991 invasion of Kuwait by Iraq led to a coalition of armed forces led by the US that pushed the Iraqi army back across its borders and liberated Kuwait from the Iraqi occupation. So in August 1990, Iraq under Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, leading to the 1991 Gulf War. Iraq claimed historical rights over the Kuwait and accused it of overpricing oil, which harmed the Iraqi oil revenues. On August 2, 1990, Iraqi forces swiftly overran Kuwait, prompting global condemnation. The United Nations imposed economic sanctions and demanded Iraq's withdrawal. Now is I'm going to talk about the negative global flows and processes of global military structures. So many international military organizations and alliances have been formed over the centuries, but the most important and most global of such organizations, at least until the end of Cold War, was the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO. NATO was formed in 1949 as a reaction against the growing threat of the Soviet Union and its allies. NATO was engaged in military operations in Kosovo in 1999 and since 2006 has been fighting in Afghanistan against the Taliban. It currently has a force of about 120,000 troops in Afghanistan. The US also has a large and growing number of additional troops there under its own command. Over 100,000 US troops were in Afghanistan in late 2010. The global military structure disrupts global flows by destabilizing trade routes and supply chain due to conflicts and heightened tensions. Massive military spending diverts resources from the vital sectors like education and healthcare, slowing development. Military presence and operations abroad often lead to local resistance and geopolitical friction, hampering international cooperation. Additionally, environmental damage from military activities disrupts ecological balances. This factor collectively hinders the smooth movement of goods, services, information, and people, crucial for global stability and prosperity. Next is we have here the technology. One of the things that makes the war today increasingly likely to be global is the existence of advanced information and communication technologies, or the ICTs, such as computers and satellites. Of course, it is developed countries, especially the US, that are likely to have the ability to afford to have access and to use these technologies. But even the least developed countries are implicated in this, at least in the sense that the technologies are likely to be used against them. Thus, the US uses its satellites to keep track of developments in some of the world's least developed countries, as well as to guide the use of military technology such as drones in them. It is also important to remember that technologies do not act of their own accord. people, and social organizations are needed to bring such technologies into existence, to decide how they are to be used and then to use them in that way. Next is we have here the information war. The new advanced technologies have made possible both traditional warfare and the more recent information war. This new information technology is deeply implicated in the new advanced weaponry employed in contemporary wars. We are moving from a world dominated by heavy industrial war that waged during World War II to one that is best seen as dominated by light or information war. Industrial war generally involves sovereign nation states, and that the homeland deeply supported it. It was fought over territory. It involved the mobilization of a large portion of the population and led to the mass casualties. It was largely symmetrical in that mass armies confronted one another. It witnessed the media harness in support of the war effort, and it provided the media with only a very limited view of what was taking place to the battlefield. In contrast, information war involves information permeating all aspects of war. It involves all sorts of new technologies, digital soldiers, drones, computer-driven weapons, and etc. It is massively asymmetrical in that only the most advanced nations, especially the US, have access to these technologies. It involves relatively small numbers of troops, many of whom are better thought as knowledge warriors. It is less oriented to gaining territory. It involves only a small portion of the population and is likely to be a war of short duration. In addition, the combatants involved in a war seek to use these media outlets to get their messages across and to further their interests. Thus, these media outlets are dominated by the talking heads, representing the various interests involved. Increasingly, this war over the ability to influence global public opinion is a very important, even integral part of the war itself. Another concept of war in another context of information is the Joseph Nye 2005 The Soft and Hard. The information war is usually seen as soft, that is hard, military technology is not employed, whereas an actual military agreement is seen as hard, involving the use of such hard technologies. However, because military hardware is increasingly dependent on information technology, it is more and more difficult to make such a clear distinction. Hard military war is increasingly influenced by various media, employing soft technologies that are more important in deciding whether a war begins and even the outcome of a war. Next is we have here the cyber war. The increasing importance of computers and the internet has had, as we have seen in the various places, many implications for globalization. One of the potentially most important and devastating is the possibility of the cyber war. Indeed, this is not just a possibility but has already occurred, most notably in the case of Estonia in mid-2007. So the Estonia War in mid-2007, often referred to as the Bronze Night, was not an actual war but a series of cyber attacks and civil unrest triggered by the relocation of Soviet-era war memorial in Tallinn. In April 2007, the Estonian government decided to move the bronze soldier statue, which commemorated Soviet soldiers who fought in World War II. This decision led to 2 nights of riots by the Russian-speaking minority in Estonia, resulting in 1 death and numerous injuries. Following the unrest, Estonia faced a wave of cyber attacks targeting governments, banking, media, and other critical infrastructure websites. These cyber attacks, which many attributed to Russian hackers, severely disrupted digital services in the country. The events highlighted vulnerabilities in Estonia's digital infrastructure and mark one of the first instances of large-scale cyber warfare. The crisis underscored tensions between Estonia and Russia and showcased the emerging threats of cyber attacks on national sensational. The impact of negative global flows on individuals. So the impact of negative global flows of individuals, such as the spread of economic downturns, infectious diseases, and misinformation, will significantly impact individuals. Economic downturns can lead to job losses, reduced incomes, and increased poverty. The spread of these diseases can result in health crises, overwhelming healthcare systems, and causing loss of life. Misinformation can create confusion, fear, and division within communities. These negative flows can also exacerbate inequalities as vulnerable populations often suffer the most. Overall, the negative global flows disrupt daily lives, threaten health and safety, and undermine social and economic stability.